Good morning. Mark Lanier with your video thought for the day. First, happy Memorial Day for those of you who are in the United States of America. It's a day we honor those in our military who gave their lives for our country and in battle and in other ways fighting through the military. So happy Memorial Day. Second, if you missed my lesson yesterday on Jonah, I do hope you'll have a chance to grab it off YouTube or one of the other sources where we've got it posted. I love the story of Jonah, and it's especially relevant to me in some ways right now. The story of Jonah involved Jonah, a Jewish prophet, going to Nineveh, a pagan city, the capital of Assyria, in order to preach repentance to the people. Now, at this time, Israel needed their own repentance. They were walking with an evil king, but God sent Jonah nonetheless to Nineveh. Nineveh was in a very precarious situation, and it gives perspective into what's going on with us today in some ways. Nineveh had in 763, there was actually let's go back to before that. In 765, there was a revolt in one of the major towns, Asher. In 763, there was another revolt in Asher, along with a total eclipse, which the people just didn't understand. Oh, and did I mention a severe outbreak of the plague 2 years earlier? 762, there's another revolt in a key city. 761, 760, 759, all of the cities are revolting. And in 759, a second severe outbreak of the plague that's devastating the population. So these are people who have the foundations being destroyed of their civilization and their society, which has been the major power in the Middle East and the Mesopotamian region for hundreds of years. But they seem to be very weak at the moment. Jonah is called to preach repentance to them. And then I got an email from my buddy Richard last week, and Richard sent me an email talking about how our perspective on things changes depending on when we're born. He said, if you had been born in the year 1900, aside from the fact you would have had no indoor plumbing, most likely, you would have been 15 years old when World War I broke out. You would have been 18 years old when it finished, or by and large did, but you have a breakout of the Spanish flu. You've now wiped out 50, 70 million people in the world. You would have been 20 some odd years old when the Great Depression hits, devastating the economies. You would have been 40, 39 when World War II breaks out, devastating the world. You would have been, oh heavens, the Cold War and the nuclear age happens when you're 45, 46, 47, and then in your early 50s, the Korean War. Then in 1960, so you're 60 years old, you've got the Cuban Missile Crisis where a wrong call, everybody's on edge, the whole world, because a wrong call devastates the planet. And then when you're 65, you've got the Vietnam War, which takes millions of lives as well. You know, it's all a question of when you were born and what you see and what you experience. And it reminds me of Psalm 11. In Psalm 11, the psalmist asks, "Why do you say to me, flee like a bird to your mountain? Because behold, the wicked bend their bows and are fitting their arrows to the strings to shoot at the upright." When the foundations are being destroyed, the taunter says to the psalmist in the psalm, when the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do? Well, that's the question that everybody should be asking, regardless of the point in history where they are, because our foundations always seem to be rattled. Whether it's the foundations of health, foundations of relationships, foundations of economics, foundations of friendships, foundations of whatever it is, culture, society. When the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do? And the psalmist answers. The psalmist answers with this: the Lord is in his holy temple. He sits on high and he looks down at people. And he takes care of things. He judges people, and he will protect his people, and he will protect his mission and purpose. And that's true whether you lived in Nineveh in the 760s BC, whether you lived in the United States of America or indeed the world in the 20th century, or whether you're alive today on Memorial Day. God takes care of his people. He sits on his throne, and in that, we can walk before him. It's your video thought for the day.